Hi everyone, good evening and welcome for joining us today. It's terrific to see so many of you here, so many familiar faces and friends and some new faces as well. I'm Veronica Pardo, I'm the CEO at MAV and I'm one of your co-hosts for this evening. So I'd like to begin by doing an acknowledgement to country, offering my deepest respects to all elders past and present for their care, knowledge and generosity. I want to acknowledge that we are all gathering on well, I think Kulin lands, if you're all Victorian artists. I'm on Wurundjeri country. At MAV, we are very committed to supporting telling, reparation and decolonisation through all of our practice. We open our hearts and minds to deep listening, learning and sharing with the First Peoples of Australia and also those from around the world. Welcome everyone to the information session for the Diaspora Commissions. If I could please ask you to put yourselves on mute while we go through this presentation. And if possible, can you, if you haven't already done so, can you make sure that your Zoom name is actually your name, because we'd love to call upon you if you have any questions. What we're going to ask, sorry, my microphone's now jumping around. How we're going to structure today is that first of all, we're going to share some information with you and take you through the Diasporas Commissions a bit more in depth. And so I might invite you to put any questions you have during this presentation into the chat function. So if you know how to use the chat function, just jump in and ask your questions. And then when we come to the end of the presentation, we'll scroll back and make sure that we've covered all of your questions. So, and then at the end, at the very end, those who are wanting to stay back and ask questions in person will have an opportunity to do so. So yes, please answer any question, ask any questions that you may have. Let me also introduce you to the Diasporas team. I think we have, there's 4 team members, myself. I'd also like to introduce you to James McKinnon, who is creative producer for Diasporas. And James, if you can maybe give everyone a bit of a wave, and some of you have already been in conversation with James, sending him emails and talking with him about your various questions. James is going to be leading the presentation tonight. I also want to introduce you to Priya Srinivasa. Priya, say hello. I'd really like to also, Priya's role is a strategic lead for MAV, and I'm going to invite her to introduce herself in a moment and also talk a little bit about how she's working with the advisory group of creatives of colour who are really helping us to shape the festival and shape the commissions program. And finally, we have Christian Biko with us as well, who is digital producer for Diasporas Festival. Please say hello, Christian.
Hi guys, how you doing?
So maybe if I can just, first of all, I might come to Priya, then Christian, invite you just to say a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll come over to James for the presentation. So Priya, maybe over to you, if you'd like just to introduce yourself and your role with Diasporas.
Hi everyone, I'd just like to say that I am zooming in from Wurundjeri country, and I acknowledge elders past and present and pay my respects, and as I'm living on unceded and stolen land. I came to Diasporas by thinking about some of the imperatives that the town hall that MAV held 2 to 3 years ago, which was with artists and stakeholders about what would a festival that would enable us to self-represent look like. What would we want? What would we like to see in such a festival? And basically a lot of the feedback that came from that was incorporated into this incredible festival that we now call Diasporas. And part of that feedback really was that people were sick of seeing individual, often white male artistic heads of festival, and really wanted to see a different way of operating. So we've actually heard that. And in that vein, we've got a team of people that have come together to put the festival together. But also, we have an advisory group of some incredible cultural leaders who are going to assess the applications and offer us feedback on how we actually move forward with the commissions that are going to be selected. And why I'm sharing this with you is that we have also streamlined the application process to keep it as simple as possible. We're all artists, and I myself included have been faced the result of many rejected applications. So we just wanted to make sure that we took all of that info in when we put these together to enable an easy process. And that's what we're here for. And this is where James is also here to help guide you and your questions beyond these information sessions as well. In also, just in terms of, a lot of people from the last information sessions asked us what does the word diasporas mean and what is the meaning of the festival? And basically the meaning of the festival comes from the Greek word diaspora, which is to spread, where we spread people. And it was used again in the Jewish diasporic context first in the mid 20th century, but we now take it to mean people who are displaced in different ways from their homelands, however that is defined. And it's the idea of displacement, ways of thinking about home, and the questions that James will actually bring up for you on what we're assessing and how we're assessing it. And I think that's about it. Veronica, is there anything else that you wanted me to address before we begin?
No, I think that's great, Priya, to give everyone a bit of background, and we will talk more about the intentions of the festival as we go through the presentation. So thank you, Priya. Let me come to Christian now and invite Christian just to say a few words, say hello, and also talk to you about his role with the festival and what he's creating that will give life to the works that we will be supporting beyond a face-to-face presentation through a festival context. Over to you, Christian.
Hi everyone. Excuse me. I'm Christian Biko. I am the digital producer for Diasporas. I was born in South Africa. I work with James, and we're trying to build this platform in whatever sort of shape it forms itself. So my main job is really to help you guys as artists present your work, with help with solutions. Yeah, so I'm not really a talker, but I'm here to help. You guys can email me at christian@mav.org.au if you have any questions about presenting the work online or in a digital sense, about how that can happen, or yeah, what options you have. Hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. So just to give you a very quick background on our festival, many of you will know that we've been talking a long time about the need for the arts sector to have better representation of creatives of colour and diverse creatives throughout the sector. This has been a massive challenge for many organisations that really seem to fit within models of tokenism. So we wondered what it would be like if we had a festival that was made for us, by us, with us, supporting artists to really make the kind of work that they want to make on their own terms. And this festival has been supported by Creative Victoria, the Australia Council, and the City of Melbourne as the first of its kind. And we're really hoping to be able to offer it over the next 4 years to build a significant body of work to showcase the talents of creatives of colour and diverse creatives from across Victoria. So I'm not going to say much more. I'm going to hand over to James, our creative producer, to take you through the presentation, but I'll be here on hand to answer any of your questions. And for those latecomers, let me just say that we're not going to take questions through the presentation. We're going to invite you to add any questions that you have into the chat function. And at the end of the presentation, we'll scroll back and make sure that we haven't missed any of your questions, and there's time for discussion at the end. So without saying anything further, let me hand over to James.
Thanks, Veronica. Good evening, everybody. I'm James, the creative producer on Diasporas. I'm also zooming in from Wurundjeri country tonight, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. I can already see so many questions coming in through on the chat, a few of which will be covered in my presentation, so just hold on to those for that. So the Diasporas Commissions is one part of the Diasporas platform. The platform has been created for and by diverse creatives to allow for artistic interventions to increase visibility, participation, and equity in the arts. This year, the Diasporas will launch with its commissions program. The commissions seek, as Veronica and Priya and Christian all said, to prioritise marginalised and underrepresented lived experiences. The commissions will be a springboard to culture and connection and knowledge, and as a training ground for the next generation of producers, designers, technicians, and creatives. The commissions are also open to our First Nations colleagues and friends, and all diverse creatives in Victoria. So for the commissions, there are 3 tiers. There is the Disrupt Commissions, which is $50,000. The Disrupt Commissions will be offered for projects that disrupt systems of power and apply innovative new processes to creative practice. The Disrupt Project Commissions are for established professional creatives or groups of professional creatives with a minimum of 5 years of demonstrated professional practice working across any art form. The Disrupt Project Commissions must involve collaboration with other creatives or other non-creatives. And there's a total of $100,000 in that pool. The Ignite Project Commissions will be offered for projects that ignite new creative practices demonstrating experimentation and or development of new practice and art form. The Ignite Project Commissions are for emerging or professional creatives with a minimum of 2 years of demonstrated professional practice across any art form. These commissions must involve, again, collaboration with creatives or non-creatives. And there's a total of $75,000 for those commissions. And lastly, there's the Represent Commissions, of which there are 5 at $10,000 each. The Represent Project Commissions will be offered for new projects or new developments of existing projects that increase the visibility and representation of diverse creatives and their communities. The Represent Commissions, Project Commissions, will be for creatives working across any art form at any level of practice, new, emerging, or established. And these can be solo or collaborative projects. So you can apply for either development or presentation or both. MAV maintains the first right of refusal for presentation during the Diasporas Festival in 2022. However, you can apply just for development. The Diasporas Festival next year will be in September, and all commissions will be part of the program for that, whether they're presented with our venue partner at the Art Centre or whether they're presented somewhere else in Melbourne or somewhere else in the state of Victoria. You can choose to have your works presented at the Art Centre, as I just said. And if you're intending to do this, you do not need to budget for presentation costs, i.e. venue costs, in your application. And if you do want to have your work presented elsewhere, obviously you'll have to include that in your budget, but you do not need to have a venue confirmed at the time of your application. Cool, so I'll just quickly read through the eligibility criteria for the commissions. So yeah, you're eligible if you self-identify as a First Nations, person of colour, or culturally or linguistically diverse person. You live in Victoria with a current Victorian address. You intend for the project to be presented in Victoria. You identify as a emerging or established individual artist or group of artists. and are able to provide 1 to 3 examples of recent solo or collaborative work, and that you're able to meet the requirements stipulated by each commission tier. This is the provocation that you need to respond to for in your application. Across every tier, you need to respond to this provocation. And Priya, did you want to speak to this at all?
I'm not sure that Priya's still with us, James, but I'm happy to. Well, I think it's pretty self-evident what we're after in terms of this provocation, and that is that we're interested in art's capacity to transform, particularly transform relationships of power. So we're interested in works that respond to these situations of bigotry and intolerance that have been so evident throughout this COVID period, but also just a regular occurrence in the lives of diverse creatives. And we're particularly interested in intersectional, intercultural, intergenerational knowledges. So as James said, you can respond to all of it or some of it, one line, but you must make clear how your intervention, how your project is responding to the provocation. Thanks, James.
Thanks, Veronica. Cool. So I'll go through the application form quickly across every tier, just so you have an idea of what we're asking and what's expected. This preview of the form is available on the Diasporas Commission website, on the MAV website. It's just down the bottom, down here. So you can take a look at it prior to submitting, or use it to draft your application. So we'll scroll down to the questions. So we just ask for contact information, how you identify culturally, and a brief project description. We also ask what audiences or communities you're hoping to engage with in your project, and how you will manage that engagement. We're also asking for your anticipated audience size, as well as bios of your creative team. No more than 2 pages on this one, but yeah, include the lead creatives on the project. What are you applying for in terms of creative development and or presentation? We ask for what the key creative outcomes for this project is, and where you anticipate for your project to be presented. We ask for a budget and a timeline, and there is a budget template back on the MAV Diasporas website that you can use to give us an idea of what you're hoping to spend the commissions on, as well as a timeline. Cool. So from here, the application form splits into the three different tiers. So for the Disrupt project commissions, we're asking the most questions out of any of them, just to match the size and the scope of the commissions. So we're asking for your response to the provocation here, and just be mindful of the word count limits on each of the questions. A description of your creative practice, and 3 links to your creative work, examples of your creative work. Here you can upload support material. I've had a few questions on whether you need to be auspiced for this application, and you do not need to be auspiced. But if you are, you can include a letter of support here. What issues are you intervening in with your project? How are you designing your creative investigation into those issues? How has this concept been developed over time? And if so, yeah, we'd like some detail on the challenges and learnings from that development. We're asking who will benefit from this project, and why you want to locate your project within the Diasporas program, and anything else you'd like to share. For the next tier, the Ignite project commissions, we're asking the same questions at the start. How will you respond to the provocation, and your creative practice, as well as links to examples of previous work. Again, a space to upload support material. And for Ignite, we're asking what issues are you intervening with, who will benefit from this project, and why do you want to locate this within Diasporas? And lastly, for the Represent Commissions, we're asking, again, the same opening questions. How does your project respond to the provocation? Describe your creative practice and provide links, support material. And for Ignite, we just ask who will benefit and why do you want to locate this project within Diasporas? And that's the application form. Again, it's available on the website just here alongside the budget template. And you can download it as a PDF and type into it. So you can use it to draft your projects. And if you have any issues with the SurveyMonkey, when you go to apply, feel free to send me an email and we can discuss alternate methods of submission. Here are the dates for the Diasporas Commissions. So they've been open since the 2nd of July and close in 3 weeks on the 20th of August. The commissions will be announced publicly on the 18th of September as part of our launch event. And the Diasporas Festival is slated for mid to late September 2022. And the creative acquittal for your project will be due at the end of next year. Just briefly, I also wanted to talk about the Ahead of the Curve commissions, which is a smaller round of commissions that MAV just, as of last week, launched. These commissions are for young emerging creatives between 15 and 35, again in Victoria. But the focus of this one is on digital outcomes in response to COVID. And these ones are valued at $750, $3,000 and $7,000. And you can check that out on the MAV website, just beside the Diasporas here. So if you have a project that you are thinking about for Diasporas, but you might think is more relevant for Ahead of the Curve, I'd encourage you to check it out and see whether that might be something that's a better fit for your project. Cool. So before we get to the questions in the chat, which I can see are flowing thick and fast, we just thought we'd cover off some frequently asked questions. So can I receive support putting together my application and budget? Yes, if you need support and assistance putting together your application, feel free to email me. We can talk about it, especially on any kind of budget issues. Let me know if you need any assistance. What art forms are eligible for funding? All art forms are eligible for funding, I guess. There's no restriction or stipulation or kind of any cutoffs for what it is and isn't eligible, just that there is a creative outcome. I have a project already in development. Can I apply for funding? If that project has not had a publicly facing outcome, then you can submit it as it is to continue its development and potentially apply for its presentation. If you have a project that you're wanting to significantly redevelop and you make that evident in your application, then you can still apply as well. But if it is a project that you're just hoping to restage or reinstall, then that is not eligible. Can I apply for funding if I have already secured other sources of funding for this project? Yes, you can. And I guess you can include that as part of in the budget and in additional support materials that you might want to upload. Do I need a letter of support? No, but again, there's a spot there for you to upload it.
So here,
just make sure everybody's on mute. Sorry. Cool. What does first right of refusal mean? Veronica, did you want to speak to that one?
Yes, thank you, James. So first right of refusal means that we are looking for new work that hasn't been presented elsewhere, but we reserve the right to present it first at Diasporas. And the first right of refusal means that if we, for some reason, feel like we can't present the work, so we've commissioned you to do the work, and for some reason we can't, we will let you know that. And you can seek to present the work elsewhere. And we don't envisage that happening. Our desire is actually to present the work, all the work that is commissioned in the festival, but we do have this clause that says if for whatever reason we cannot present it, we will enable you to go and present the work elsewhere, that you're not stuck with a work that can't be presented.
Thank you, Veronica. Do I have to present my work at the Arts Centre? No, you do not. You can submit it, you can present it anywhere in Victoria, but it will be included as part of the Diasporas 2022 festival program, but obviously not at the Arts Centre. Do I have to budget for presentation costs if I intend for my project to be presented at the Arts Centre? I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier on, but if you're intending for your project to be at the Arts Centre, then you don't need to budget for its presentation costs. Can I submit an application for multiple commission tiers? No, is a short answer. If you have multiple projects, you can submit for multiple tiers of funding, but each project can only be submitted for one tier of funding, if that makes sense. There are some other questions around whether can you submit different versions of the same project to match the different commission tier sizes. Veronica, did you want to speak to that question? Sorry,
I was looking at something in the chat function and I didn't hear your question.
Just whether if can people submit projects if they're kind of rebudgeting it and redesigning it for each tier, but it's the same project?
No. So unfortunately, you get one crack at per project. So you can submit 3 different projects to 3 different tiers, but they must be different projects. You cannot redesign, chop or change your project for the 3 different tiers, if that makes sense to everyone. And if not, stick it in the chat and we'll come back to it.
Cool. Thanks, Veronica. All right, now we'll jump to the questions that are coming up in the chat.
So James, can I get you to stop? Yeah, that's great. Stop sharing so we can look at all of everyone's faces. And so lovely to see you all. I might start with the questions and just give you a bit of a break, James, and I'll go to you as we go as well. So let's start with Miss Cairo's question. Can I apply as part of an organisation and as an individual artist? So only individual artists and collectives may apply for this commission, not organisations. So you can apply as an individual artist or as a group, but no, you cannot apply in the context of your organisation. Mito asks, how many people will you cast for this program? So there's 10 commissions, Mito, but how many people you want to include in your project is up to you. However, we would put this caveat on it, and that is that we want to see artists paid for their work. So we're not going to look favourably upon applications that have artists who are not paid. And we want you to pay yourselves for your work as well. And that's a question that's asked later on. As lead artists, as project leads, we'd like to see you pay yourselves. We really want to move away from the culture of exploitation that we have so often seen with our work. You know, that creatives of colour, particularly creatives of colour, are asked to do so much unpaid labour. So please do pay yourselves and pay your artists and factor that into your budget costs. So if I haven't answered your question, jump back in the chat and we'll come back to you. So Coralie asks, will the presentations of these shows have a full season? at least 6 shows. That really depends on how you're structuring your project, and it really depends on where you're where you're wanting to present it. If it's Arts Centre Melbourne, there may be an opportunity for a season, but I'm not sure whether 6. Well, you know, we'd have to negotiate to. So you need to tell us what you're envisaging. We won't discount you if you say that you want 6 shows and we can only manage 5. We'll come and talk to you about it. So this is not a grant application, and we're not the government. So, you know, we're going to have a conversation with you. If your application is looking like, you know, it's really strong and it's getting up there, but we've got some questions, we're going to come and talk to you about it and say, what do you think about this? Or we don't think there's enough budget for that. So give us your best, give us your best story. Tell us your best story. And remember, you're not applying to Creative Victoria, where we are, you know, Mav is a colleague and a friend to you all. And so please tell us your story in your words, and don't worry too much about getting, you know, grant speak right. You want to take the next question, James? Jazz asks, will auspice relationships be considered? If not, what are the requirements of individual applications?
Cool. Thank you. Auspice relationships are not compulsory or required in any way. But if you do have somebody or an organisation auspicing your project, then you can include that information in your application in the support material section that I showed before. And there are no requirements in the application, RE insurance or ABN. Coralie asks again, will the presentations be moved online, and will artists have a choice if they want to do that or not if COVID hits? We're working at the moment on how we'll pivot if COVID hits. Obviously, it's 13 months away, the presentation season at the Arts Centre for the Diasporas Festival next year. Who knows, I guess, where we'll be then. But we are definitely considering this as we start to put together the festival. Yeah.
And maybe, James, just to note that with Christian on board, developing, you know, a significant infrastructure, digital infrastructure, we can guarantee that if it's not presented, you know, the work will have the possibility of a life online, well supported, with you know, Christian's skill base and everyone on the MAV team pivoting in that direction. So, and he's already well entrained in that work, and you'll see the head of the Curve Commissions are intended solely for a digital outcome. So we're not seeing digital as lesser. You know, I think if COVID has taught us anything, it's that, you know, it's equally valid and important, a platform. So, you know, don't be worried about that. Jazz asks, what's the expected reach of the 25K grants? I might take this one, James.
Yep.
So we're not thinking of the projects as, you know, a big project is the 50,000, a medium-sized project is 25, and a small project is 10. It's about the complexity of the project that you imagine. So sometimes you can have a small project that might apply for the 50,000 because it's very complex, because you're managing a set of relationships that may be intersectional relationships. So we're not concerned with your, you know, will you reach enough people? What we're really concerned with is impact and transformation. So the extent to which your project can actually grapple with some of the complex issues that we are setting about to challenge. So don't worry too much about, oh, it's 25, so I need to have audiences of 3,000. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in, you know, a really impactful idea, something new, something that has the potential to transform the way in which we work as creatives within the sector. So James, you want to take the next one? So Noreen asks, I'm planning to host an art exhibition of art produced by the South Asian diaspora. Would that qualify under the grant?
Yes. Short answer is yes. Yeah. The next question is from Maito, is where will this festival take place? Anywhere in Victoria. So the festival will be based at the Art Centre in Melbourne, but again, you can apply and find venues anywhere in Victoria. So kind of as we've leaned into the way COVID has decentered everything, it'll certainly be part of the Diasporas 2022 festival programming, but it does not need to be at the Art Centre.
Thanks, James.
That's okay.
The next question is by Ravi, asking whether the advisory group will be published, the names will be published. And yes, James will be publishing them. They will all be known to you. They're all creatives of colour, diverse creatives from our sector, leaders from our sector. We're publishing their names to have complete transparency, but we are asking applicants, please not to lobby them if you know them, because you will know them, because we're a very small community and we draw upon, you know, incredible leaders from our community. So they're not there for you to lobby though personally for your particular project, but we will certainly be letting you know who they are. So Nella, James, Nella asks whether we can present our work dually with both a digital and live performance component.
Yeah, that would be really cool to see that. So yeah, make that, I guess, make that part of your project known in your application, and yeah. Yeah,
great. Vanessa asks, can I apply for 2 different projects under the same stream? Which I don't think anyone's asked this question yet, James.
No.
But the answer is no. You can only apply once in each stream.
And, yep.
Jazz asks whether Ignite funds can be used to pay project leads, James.
Yes. And I think we have covered it off. And I'm going to kind of combine a few of the questions that I'm seeing come up around the same kind of thing. Where, yes, so you can budget to pay your creatives and you can use like Musicians Union or MEAA rates to calculate the fees. But yeah, certainly, as Veronica was saying before, we want to make remuneration for labour part of this commission program.
Annie asks whether, if you're interested in applying for development, will you still be able to present your work in the festival or in the future?
Sorry, I'm just reading the question as well. Yes, I guess. We have left it kind of open that if you didn't want to present immediately next year, you have the option to present in 2023 if you need more time to develop or want to seek more funding for the development. But that's a bridge we can cross when we get to it, I guess. I hope that answers that question.
Nella asked about the audience. I feel like we've already spoken about audience. We don't have a predetermined idea about what is a good audience. We want to know about how your project is going to, you know, really impact on people. So I don't think we can really tell you what size is an acceptable audience.
And I think on that, something we said in the information session last week is it's not so much what you expect the audience to be, but it's how big you want or hope for that audience size to be. So how many people would you like to see experience your project? Yeah.
Thanks, James. So Vanessa asks, if the project is collaborative, do I need to provide links of work examples of all the people involved? I might take that one, James, and just say, no, it's in that case, we're really looking at the project lead, not necessarily every single person. So either, you know, you as the leader or the key kind of creatives who are leading this process. Might have to speed along.
Yep.
So what if your project might take longer than 2 years and won't be ready by 2023? I presume that's 2023 and not 2013. 2013 is gone, but maybe can I just ask Ruhi to unmute yourself and just clarify, do you mean that the project won't be ready by 2022, but may be ready by 2023? No, I'm just going to presume then that the question is it won't be ready for 22, but it may be ready for 23, in which case that's fine.
What about in the case, Veronica, that it's not ready in that 2-year time period?
I would not submit it. I would still submit it because we're hoping to have diasporas for 4 years. So even if your outcome is only, ready in the last year, tell us. Because, the worst thing that can happen is that we could say to you, look, resubmit it again next year. But, don't hold off telling us about your project, because if you've got something that can't be shown until 2024, it must be pretty bloody good. So, I'd love to hear about it. Don't, have a conversation with us, or else, email James. James will set up a meeting time with you just to have a chat and hear what's going on for your project. So, yeah, just talk to us. The next one is, do the issues relate to provocation? Can you provide an example of issues? For who will benefit? Is this individuals or individual arts sector or audience? Okay, so clearly we are interested in work that is going to tackle the issues of equity in the sector. The whole purpose for the festival is to categorically make us, stake our ground and say that the arts sector should be for everyone, and that diverse creatives need to play a significant role. So we're interested in how you're going to grapple with that issue. So if you're wanting to make work that doesn't necessarily have this kind of political element, it's probably not the festival for you. This is unapologetically a political festival with an interest in significant equitable transformation in the sector. Those are the issues that we're wanting to grapple with, intensely with issues of racial equity. And then who will benefit? Well, I guess we want to know, is this something that you feel has the potential to transform the group, you as an artist, you as a lead creative, the collective that you're working with, or the community that you're representing? So who are you thinking about is the subject of this transformation? Rachel asks, does this need to be a concept devised for the Diaspora Commissions, or may I apply for a represent commission for something I'm already working on? E.g., I just signed a book contract and am seeking further funding for the creative development portion of the project. James, do you want to have a go at that one?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm also just reading it to digest it. Yeah, so if you already have a project in development, you can apply for funding. Yeah. Does that answer that question?
Yes, but but the first presentation of that outcome must be with Diasporas. So if you've got a publishing deal that requires you to present that work with your publisher in another context, then that excludes you from this application. It has to be able to be presented for the first time through Diasporas.
And I will say that if you have a question that is very kind of nuanced and about kind of something very specific that you're working on, feel free to email it to me and we can discuss the details further. Ms. Kyra asks, can you apply for ahead of the curve as well as diasporas? Yes, you can. They just do have to be different projects, as mentioned earlier. Does everyone in the creative project need to be living in Victoria? No, is the answer to that question. Obviously, yeah, the way we work now has changed, and everybody is in different places. So not everybody needs to be living in Victoria, and 2022 is a long time away, so things might change in that regard. Thank you, Vanessa, for that question. Ms. Caro asks, again, what comes under presentation costs? So if you're planning for or wanting your work to be presented at the Arts Centre, as I said earlier, you don't need to budget for presentation costs. So that would include anything that you would usually negotiate in a venue hire agreement. So lighting, sound, visual effects, AV, those kind of things. Set you'll need to budget for, obviously. But like bump-in costs won't need to be included. Yeah, things that come under, the things that would come under a venue hire agreement.
Have any questions about that? If that's something that's really troubling you, best to email James and have an offline conversation around what does that mean, because it can be new for some artists to be thinking about presenting their work in a venue, and you might not necessarily know what those costs might be. But fortunately, if you want to do it with Arts Centre Melbourne, they're actually covering those costs as part of their partnership.
Where are we up to?
Khalid. What if we get accepted with 2 or more projects? How does that work? Shall I take that one, James? I think it's very unlikely that someone is going to get 2 diaspora commissions, given that we've only got 10 in total and we've got 25 ahead of the Curve Commission. So it's most unlikely that someone will get 2 out of 10 commissions. But in the event that someone presents something that is absolutely, 2 projects that we cannot say no to, we'll come and talk to you first. But we'd like to spread the love as much as possible and give as many people opportunities. And we wish we could do more than 10. Honestly, we'd love to be able to fund everyone. Ms. Cairo asks, what constitutes an organisation or a collective? Do you want me to take that one, James?
Yep.
So a collective is a group. It has no formal structure per se. So a collective can have been working for years, or it can form tomorrow. An organisation is an incorporated association or a legal entity, a company. So we are excluding organisations that are legally constituted as organisations from applying. And the reason that we have excluded organisations is because they have significant institutional capital that allows them to apply in a whole range of other categories. And we're really trying to target people who don't get a look in those competitive processes. So we're really after individuals or groups who don't have any kind of formal, and legal constituted structure. The next question, James, can you recommend the rates we refer to for the budget?
Yeah, so I gave some examples before from the Musicians Union or MEAA or any other kind of union or industry body that advises rates. If you want more guidance with finding advised rates, feel free to email me and we can discuss that. Yeah, but using kind of industry standards is probably, or is best practice. So I'd advise you do that. And I am just conscious of the time. So if we do get to 7:30 and your question hasn't been answered and you need to go, feel free to email me and I'll follow up with you as soon as possible. Let's
speed through. Mm-hmm. So can you apply as a creative sole trader business? Yes, you can. So it is as if you're an artist and your main business is, so your sole trading business is you as an artist, you can apply.
Veronica, did you have any clarity on what we meant by intervening?
Oh, sorry. I think I might have spoken about that already. So, we're purposely using this idea of an intervention. We're intervening in a problem, and the problem is inequity, lack of representation, poor, engagement and participation opportunities. So we're looking for projects that intervene with those things, rather than simply, not to say that we don't value art for art's sake, we do, but this is a political festival. So we're interested in works that have a kind of pointy edge to them. Apart from Arts Centre, are there other venues? We don't have a venue partner other than Arts Centre Melbourne at this point, but you might have. And so we don't want to exclude your relationships. You need to tell us if you have, or you may envisage presenting the work in another location in your community. And so you should feel free to do that. And it won't negatively impact on your application if you say that you want to present your work in your local community centre or wherever it may be. But we have a partnership with Arts Centre Melbourne because in part we are working on a transformation process with that organisation to really lead the rest of the festival in some of this change. So maybe moving on then, Cheeto asks, do we need to email MAV separately to this request for an auspicing agreement? I might tackle that one and just say you don't need an auspicing agreement for this, but if you want one because you feel like you want some assistance managing the finances, then talk to James. Email James, talk to James. He's got a set of information for you around who you can go to, but you can also go to other auspicing agencies like Auspicious Arts. You don't have to just go to MAV. Insurance will be covered by MAV and Arts Centre Melbourne, so you don't need to worry about insurance. But I should say though, as practicing professional artists, it's a really good idea to have your own insurance. Public liability insurance is only $150. It's, $150 is not nothing, but I think that it's always good practice to have your own insurance just in case. But in the event of, in the event that your work is selected, you will be covered by MAV's insurance fully. How will the funds be released to artists? Yes, to their personal bank accounts, correct. Can you apply for more than one project? James, you've already spoken about that.
Yep.
So you don't have to use union rates, but we recommend that you look at your peak body. So if you're a visual artist, go to NAVA. If you're a performing artist, go to TNA, Theatre Network Australia. Go to your, peak body, your union, and find out. As much as possible, we would like you to adhere to those rates. And again, I'll just reiterate, if you haven't heard me, pay yourselves. Make sure that you are paying yourselves. I think we've spoken about audience quite a bit, so I'm just going to jump through, James.
Yeah.
Does it need to be presented during a certain time frame? So it needs to be presented sometime in 2022, preferably in the latter half. So we will, if you want to present your work in Arts Centre Melbourne, we will have dates for you when you will have to present the work, because we have certain dates when we have access to that venue. But if you're going to present your work elsewhere and say, let's say you've already negotiated with, a local gallery to have access to it in October, then we will work with you to present the work under the Diasporas banner during that time. So you don't have to feel constrained that it all has to happen in one particular moment. And if COVID has taught us anything, it's that model is finished. So again, talk to us. Tell us what is in your imagination. What is it that you're dreaming of doing? And we'll work with you to make it work. Raina asks, when is the festival? And I think I've just explained, the festival is every day, all the time. But we're going to have given that you're going to be beginning your creative developments through the early half of 2022, yes, we will be presenting it in the latter half of the year. Maybe you can take the next one from Sarah.
For the tier of represent project commissioners, does it mean that does it mean work that is an extension or built upon an existing work that was public facing? I would say briefly on that the work that you are presenting or submitting rather should be significantly redeveloped from what was initially presented. It should in fact be a new project. It's a hard question to answer because there's obviously a lot of nuance there that's hard to explain quickly. But yeah, so I don't know if I've answered it. Does that make sense at all?
Maybe I think Sarah, have a conversation with James about that one just to clarify, because we've got 37 messages still to go and it's already 7:30. So those who have to go, please, you know, don't let us hold you up. We're recording this, so you can come back and see these answers later. Let's just keep plowing through though. Mohammed asks, if I were to apply for Diasporas, but upon assessment, my project was better suited to ahead of the curve, would you approach me? No, you need to apply for them both because they have two different assessment processes. So apply to both. Okay, moving on. So I think we've answered Mito's question. Moving on. What does it mean in terms of income ticket sales? Do you want to do that one, James, or do you want me to?
I would say just what you project to earn from ticket sales. So if you anticipate that you will have an audience size of 100 and you're selling them at, say you're selling tickets at $10 per ticket, ignoring any kind of admin costs that might be involved, that would mean that you would expect the income from that to be $1,000. Ms. Kara asks, you mentioned Christian helping out with the digital costs should something happen with COVID. Do you have any more specifics on that? That's a kind of a nuanced question. If something was to happen with COVID, then yeah, we would discuss with you as it's happening what we might be able to do to assist with the pivoting of that project. Obviously, there aren't really more specifics on that at the moment because it's kind of hard to envisage right now. But yeah, Christian or Veronica, did you want to add to that at all?
Well, it's more, Ms. Cairo and others, it's more that if the work can't be presented because of COVID, we will work with you to see whether a digital version of your project is reasonable, like whether it meets your desires and ours. If it doesn't, we'll probably talk about rescheduling. But if it does, you'll work with Christian to think about how to present it on the Diasporas platform. That's what his role will be, to work with you to think about how that project can have a life on the platform. Might not be for everyone, and it certainly won't be for every project, but we're already building that capability because we've learned through COVID that anything can happen and we need to prepare for all eventualities. Does that sound all right, Christian, to you?
Yeah, that sounds great.
So James, do you want to pop your email address in the chat function?
That's what I just did.
Do you welcome a group of mature artists to apply? Yes, we do. We are particular. So Ahead of the Curve is the only one that has an age limitation, 15 to 35. Diasporas is for everyone. We're also interested in intergenerational works. If the project is participatory, do we need to provide the confirmation from participants? No, you don't. So we want to know who's the creative team, the sort of top level creative team, and just describe your participants. You don't need to confirm them, or we don't need to know who they are specifically. Thank you everyone for messages of love and support and intervention. That's fantastic. We love to hear that too. Will there be access to rehearsal spaces? That's, that's a maybe. That's a tell us in your project that you need that. because we will do, if your project is chosen, we will do everything that we can to find those spaces. Probably not going to be at the art centre, to be fair, but we have access to other spaces as well. So you need to tell us whether that's going to be something that you require.
I think that might be all the questions. Last call on any questions. Thank you for all the nice messages. It's really nice.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your engagement and support with this festival, and we look forward to seeing your applications, and we're going to be advocating for you. We're going to be advocating to make sure that this continues and that there's more resources. So thanks, everyone. Thank you, James. Thanks, Christian. And yeah, love to you all. Be safe and well.
Thank you, everybody.